Lynn Doyle is a multi-award-winning journalist and 9-time Emmy recipient with more than 25 years of television news experience. She is host and executive producer for the Comcast Network's Emmy award-winning TV show, It's Your Call with Lynn Doyle. A pro at tackling issues making national headlines, Doyle provides a forum for people to voice their concerns and opinions. And you may find it as no surprise that Lynn comes from a family of go-getters.
My mother was probably my greatest role model because when I was a young girl, she had a career at a time when women typically didn't have careers.
Yeah.
And she didn't use that as an excuse not to get involved in her children's lives. Like, she was able to volunteer and do a lot of things on the home front. So
right.
She was definitely the #1 go-getter.
Yeah.
My father was self-employed, an entrepreneur, and always encouraged us always to follow our dreams and to do better than the family had
Yeah.
done. So absolutely, an entire family of go-getters, brothers, sisters, they're all like that.
A writer at heart, Lynn's first television experience took her totally by surprise.
Never ever occurred to me when I was a young woman that I would end up in television, because I grew up on the east side of Baltimore, very blue-collar, middle-class neighborhood, and I was just interested in writing and possibly being a reporter. And when I was coming up, it was the era of Woodward and Bernstein, so the idea of perhaps maybe being able to work for the Washington Post someday was like the biggest dream that I had. It wasn't until years later that I had the opportunity to be on television that took me totally by surprise.
What was that like the first time you were on?
The first time I was on television, I was quite young. I was actually in grade school, and it was a local talent show that used to air. Every market had it, and I was on quite by accident. I happened to be in the audience, and I was called up onto the stage and performed a little bit. And then my next experience in front of the camera, I was only about 18, and I worked at a local McDonald's, and they were doing commercials for the 2 all-beef patty, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions, and a sesame seed bun. Right, so I was able to say it in the allotted amount of time. And then the first time I was really, truly, seriously on television was right out of college. And again, it just kind of evolved. It's not anything that I thought I would do, but now it's just a part of who I am. I can't imagine not doing it now. But to answer your question, I am a writer at heart, and I always say to anyone who's interested in journalism or reporting or being a member of the media is that you really have to hone those writing skills, because that's the most important skill that you can have.
Yeah. Do you think that we could possibly see a book
Oh,
soon?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I have several percolating in the back of my mind. One is nonfiction and actually very helpful to people in our profession.
Oh, great.
And
I want to autograph
the second one, you'll have the first one, and the second one is more of a fiction. So, it's always, you put that on the back burner, like as soon as I get a spare moment, I'm going to do that. And so far, I haven't gotten that spare moment.
No stranger to breaking down the issues or the barriers, Lynn Doyle discusses her experience climbing the ladder in the television industry.
There weren't really mentors for me when I was coming up in television. I mean, we were all coming up at the same time. People like Katie Couric or Meredith Vieira. I'm that age. So everybody was kind of breaking those barriers at the same time. Some went a little further.
Right.
That's okay. I'm happy where I am.
Hosting and producing a high-paced interactive television program, Lynn learns something new every day.
Well, I learn something new every day. And I mean, that's why I love my job so much, is because, it's never boring. It's always interesting. It's always informative. No matter how old you are, I'm 52 now, and I still learn something every day. And I think that if you wake up with that goal of what can I do today, what can I learn, what can I do to make myself better, how can I help someone else, I mean, that's a reason to get up in the morning, So, what it does for me is it keeps me alive and vibrant and interested and hopefully interesting because I share a lot of the information that I get from my guests with my friends and my family, not just my viewers, So hopefully it makes for interesting dialogue and conversation and good many debates at the supper table.
A veteran television journalist, few stories take her by surprise, as for the past 3 decades, Lynn Doyle has covered them all.
I've been in television for 30 years now, and it's just part of my being, of who I am. For example, with the Michael Jackson tragedy in the summer, I grew up with Michael Jackson, and I followed his trials and tribulations, literally his trials, on the show. And so I knew all of that information. It was just kind of in my vault.
Right.
And so, I had to kind of reach back in, maybe do a little bit of research, but I know the history of Michael Jackson and the good and the bad and everything in between. So it was very comfortable for me just to be able to do a show on that or discuss it or to ask questions about it. And I find that with almost everything. I mean, there's very few stories that shock me anymore because having been around for 3 decades, I've pretty much done them all, and some of them twice. OJ just keeps coming back. I mean, just can't get rid of OJ, So, yeah. So, it doesn't take as much preparation when it comes to those kinds of the aspect where I need to ask questions. Where it takes preparation is making a good TV show. Having the right graphics and having the right video and having the right guest, and that's what takes the planning. But we've again done it for so long that we just have a great staple of guests that we use, and people are familiar with the show. So when we invite them to come on, they usually do so willingly.
When it comes to balancing work and family, Lynn has found the key to prioritizing.
That's been the great thing about It's Your Call for me, is that I was able to be the executive producer and the host of it and work it into my personal life. Like my mother, who I mentioned was the example to me when I was growing up, I was able to go to my daughter's games, be part of the PTO or the local charities, or help my husband coach their softball teams or their soccer teams, whatever it happened to be, and still do the show because it was my creation, and so I could put myself into it as much as I needed to, or pull away from it when I needed to, when the family was more important. My children are grown now, they're 27 and 30. So now my balance is not being a workaholic. Now my balance is finding time at this point in my life to enjoy what I have attained. Right. And so I spend time at the beach. I spend time with my twin grandsons and both my daughters. We travel. We always take a month to go to New Zealand. You just have to make that priority and say, it doesn't mean I'm not good at what I do at work, but you have to be equally as good at what you do at home.
A pioneer in breast cancer awareness, inspiration is never far from home, as Lynn's mother is a breast cancer survivor.
I had no idea that I would end up being such an advocate for breast cancer research and fundraising. I didn't realize how it affected me until my mom had it. And then, then it was just, okay, I'm just glad she's okay. But as I got older, it was, wait a minute, now this is, a first line direct to me. And then I have daughters. So, it really moved to the forefront for me. And it's like anything we can do to help or to, like I said, keep it at bay, I'm willing to do it.